I have a problem. I suck at art. And when you think of a game, you usually think it has art in it, really cool stuff. But my character is a box. And you might be asking why. Well, the short answer is that I suck at art. I can create two things. One, basic shapes. I can make a square, I can make a circle, I can make a triangle. Second thing is Trogdor, the Burdinator. It's from a way back in the day, from a Strong Bad email. I'll show you how I make it. You can follow along at home. Let's rewind a bit. Let's go back to any person that wants to make a game. They stumble across this issue of wanting to put art in their game, right? And in my opinion, there are three different paths you can take. Option number one, you can hire or work with an artist or a friend. And this is awesome. This is incredible. These people just kick ass, and having them just next to you and working alongside of you is always just inspiring. The reason that I'm not doing that with Lumina Rush is just because I didn't have an artist when I started it, and I wanted to do this by myself. I wanted to see how far, and I'm going to get to that, but I wanted to see how far I could get to it. But I didn't have an artist friend or anyone that I knew when I started this. So I feel like a lot of people were in my situation where you don't know artists. You just like, I want to make the game. And then you hit that roadblock and you're like, dang, can't do that one. Option one. Then there's option two, which is buy or download free or like paid pre-made assets. This is a really cool option because there's so many online resources that you can just pull from and throw them into a game, which is sweet. In my opinion, is great for prototyping, but there becomes like a problem and a small issue when you're making an actual game. You fall under two different camps. One, you start making a game and then realizing you're confined more and more to what the assets have. And if you want something else, then you feel very limited by it, which is always like a frustration of mine, but it can be a good thing to work in. It can like force you to scope into what is available, which is honestly a great tool to make you, especially if you want to make a game, just buy like an asset pack and just work with that. If you work in the confines of an asset pack, right? You have the issue of if other people are using the asset pack to make a game, you become into, I guess, a generic feel, and it doesn't have like your own personal feel, artistic feel to the game. And it's not as personal, in my opinion, so you lose that as well. So yeah, and that can be kind of frustrating. And the third thing that you can do is you can decide, I'm gonna make it myself. And when I was starting off making this game, I was like, that's what I want to do. So let's go to my artistic journey. My artistic journey, wow, which isn't great. When I started to think about just making my own stuff, I went through a process, and I think it's the worst process that people go through, where you start at the top. Rather than the bottom, you start at the top, and you think, can I make that? For example, I look at AAA industries studios and look at like, I don't know, Assassin's Creed or Halo or Call of Duty and like these beautiful 3D models. And I ask myself, can I do that? And the answer is obviously no. So instead of going way to the bottom, I just go one step lower. And I'm like, maybe I could do, and you look at indie stuff and you're like, maybe I can do like low poly 3D modeling. So I went about that route because I found a Blender course and was like, this is dope. If I can make any 3D model, I'll literally be able to create anything, which is very inspiring, but is very ambitious. 3D modeling is an art, and I think it is a very good skill to have. But if you lie to yourself in thinking that you'll be able to pump out art assets like a boss for any game that you're making and make like 100 different assets for a game in a week, you're probably delusional like I was, until I went through the course, got like a quarter of the way through, and was like, I, one, don't like doing this, and two, am just feeling very frustrated. So I gave up on that and kind of was like, all right, 3D in my naive brain is the hard world, and 2D is the easy world, which is its own thing entirely. But I was like, it's 2D. 2D is one less D than 3D. So I was like, all right, let's do that. And what's the simplest 2D art? Because I would see beautiful like pictures and illustrations, and I was like, I clearly can't do that. So, but I saw like pixelated art, and I was like, pixel art, and I was like, that seems simpler because it's just like use the pixels. That is its own skill. It's not necessarily easier, some might argue, but in my opinion, it was also very hard because it's its own style, and you have to kind of be confined to that style. And in my opinion, it didn't make sense. So I kept getting frustrated with trying to make art, and it really kind of like wore me down in a way in game development. It made me not want to make games, because anytime I thought about making a game, I thought about, then I have to make art. And then I just didn't want to really do it because it felt like I would always hit that roadblock and just fall off because I wouldn't be able to reach a standard that felt good. So I then took a step back and asked a really important question that I think is really valuable, which is art needed to make a fun game? And that is something that really resonated with me, because this project, Lumina Rush, is really along those lines to kind of push that idea. And I've played other games that really have minimalist, simple geometry art, like Thomas Was Alone or just Shapes and Beats, that use just basic shapes as, you know, what you play as. And that really had me thinking that you don't have to just rely on art to make a good, fun, compelling game. So that's what I went about. And it's funny because I've now been on both sides of it. I've worked with artists in game jams, and I can really see the power that art has in a game, especially when you have simple mechanics and something really basic, because you can only make it in 48 hours. So your gameplay isn't that great. But when it's tied with beautiful art, it can kind of lean on that. It can lean on that other pillar in the game, like art or music, and really give that feel of a solid and clean game because of that. But if you have good mechanics, good gameplay, is it needed? For example, in Lumina Rush, it's all about the movement. It's all about the movement, and you're not really focused on anything else. If the movement was shit, it would be a shit game. That's just a fact. But it's not. And that really helps carry it in this process. So if you make a good mechanic and you go a simple style, it will stand out. You just have to be confident that that mechanic or that gameplay loop is good. Now, you might be saying, but Ben, your game isn't just a box. There's like other stuff going on. And I would tell you, you're right. And I would tell anyone that sucks at art this thing: cheat. Cheat as much as you can. When I mean cheat, I mean do simple hacks that make your game look good. One of those things for my game is bloom. Bloom is this effect that makes it look really like futuristic-y, and I think a lot of games put it in, and some people are like, bloom blows because it's everywhere. Well, it's a cool effect that makes your game stand out a little bit more, makes it more effective. And in my game that's kind of about like electricity, it was a really simple effect that kind of captured that futuristic feel. The second thing that I would say, especially in a platformer, is to give it a good feel, like stretch things. You'll notice in some animations that things are stretched and torn, and there's probably a very good video on why this is a good thing, but I'll say you'll notice that my character, it has this effect of like, if it's moving down really fast, it's stretching long ways. If it's moving right really fast, it's stretching like horizontally. That's not an animation, it's not sprite. It's literally me just taking the box and stretching it dependent on its velocity. That's all I'm doing. But it has that effect of giving it kind of a malleability that gives it this feel of speed. And that is a really simple thing that I did, but gives it a huge effect. And when I have people play the game, they're like, hey, that looks great, which is awesome. And then the final thing I would say is just use particle effects, use line renderers. I have a bunch of lines that like follow the player that gives it kind of this trail feel, and it makes it more effective in like gauging how fast you're going. And then particle effects are just simple shapes, but a metric butt ton of them just being used. And yeah, that's really what it's all about. Is I think at the end of the day, your art is terrifying for a lot of us programmers. It's this mystic art that is out in the wild that is scary because we don't know how to handle it, and anytime we try at it, we feel very inadequate in comparison to all the beautiful art stuff that already exists. But the biggest takeaway I feel like I really want to have is that you don't need art to make a fun game. And that's huge. And you can just start making something that you think is fun and throw it in people's faces and iterate on that and make it better and better and better. And then when you get to a point where you feel like art will then enhance and make this feeling of gameplay better, you can go and you can cheat, or you can talk to an artist, and then you will be there. But you don't have to start at the very beginning being like, I need art. No, throw that idea away and just start making cool stuff. And that's really all I have to say. So if you like the video, I really appreciate you just for watching. And yeah, stay awesome and like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. So yeah, have a good one.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is your art streamer, YouTuber, and today we're going to be teaching you guys how to make Trogdor, the Burnator. First, draw an S for snake-like thing. Then, draw a similar S. And now we just gotta, give it a head, and, give it some eyes, give it a tail, little legs here, give it some wings if it's a wingaling dragon, you know, beefy arm for good measure, then some consummate V's for the teeth, and, you know, scales and such. The Burninator. Okay, maybe I can't draw Trogdor.